Welcome back to the NFL Trades Podcast. We're going to be doing a Week 2 review, and we're going to be starting out with the Bills-Dolphins game that occurred on Thursday. Obviously, as we all know, Tua did suffer a career-threatening injury that we will have to see if what his decision ultimately is, as it is trending towards him playing again and continuing his career, but he's going to have to go to a neurological doctor to kind of figure out what his plans are. Now, a lot of people on media did say that they believe he should call it quits, and it was very impulsive reaction from the NFL community. And Nick Saban, his former head coach at Alabama, did come out and say that he believes that it should be a more of a medical decision over, going with what the media is trying to say. Obviously, a lot of players don't listen to the media, but there can be narratives created in which a player then kind of leans on that, and they feel pressured by this said narrative, and they feel like they have to do something that maybe isn't really in their best will, or even in their family's best will, or people around them. Obviously, how I interpret it is that Tua really needs to, obviously go see doctors, go see people that are professionals at this, and go from there and make his decision. And obviously, allow his wife specifically and even other family and friends to have said input. Obviously, his kids, one's 2, one's literally an infant, right? So they don't have an input, but obviously his family would not want him to be at a lower state when his career is all said and done. So obviously they definitely play a factor in his decision, and it's obviously important that he, goes to his wife and family and friends and asks how they feel about it. I know one NFL player came out and said that his wife would watch every game, in specifically the home games that she would go to in person. She would watch those games and just be scared every time, and she honestly just didn't enjoy it because she was scared something bad would happen, because like everybody says, I know it's very cliche, but it is a violent game. And speaking of which, we can get into a little bit of the CTE, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. I don't know how to encephalopathy. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Encephalopathy. It's like encephalopathy, which is so obviously CTE. And obviously we've seen players who have been diagnosed with it, and it is a disease. So it is not just an injury, it is a disease, and it's in where your there's these things called tau proteins that are then generated from these head injuries where your brain is rattling, and they strangle the small blood vessels that are in your brain, and they kill actually just parts of your brain. So that's why it's a disease, because it starts in one area, and then it goes from one area all the way to the rest of your brain. So that's why you see different types of symptoms with CTE, and that's why it's kind of hard to diagnose, and that's why they're kind of only able to diagnose it post death, in which they diagnose it in autopsy. And there was a player, he was named Phillip Adams, who had fatally shot six people in his own hometown in Rock Hill, South Carolina, in which he had stage 2 CTE because he shot 6 and he did take his own life. But he was found to have stage 2 CTE in the autopsy. And obviously the thing with the helmets is they can't protect your brain from rattling and these proteins being created, but what they can do is protect skull fractures, and that's why the Guardian Cap is very crucial when it comes to your skull. Not concussions though. It's not going to protect you from concussions. It's not really going to protect you from this brain rattling that can cause this CTE. Now, they did say there in 2021 that they were close to finding out how to diagnose it in pre-death, right? When you're living. But they still haven't got there yet, and that does kind of scare me, because this whole thing with Tua, and obviously with Tua, he's very susceptible to concussions, and that does come from him suffering a lot of concussions, and that's just how it is in general. But typically with him though, his body is just not made for football. It's not made for taking these hits. It's not made. That was that hit he took from Damar Hamlin. Yes, he is very susceptible, but it really kind of shows that he just shouldn't be playing, because he's just going to take more. And yes, he can sit here and say, okay, well, I can avoid myself from doing that. I can learn how to slide. I can obviously he took the classes, didn't get hurt all last year. He took jiu-jitsu classes to avoid hitting the ground too hard. He knows how to fall now. That's all great, but if something were to happen again, it can just only get worse from there. And so, yes, I believe he's gonna get medically cleared, because obviously there's no symptoms as of now. But the thing is, like I said, I'm scared because he can't diagnose CTE right now. So how are we gonna sit here and say, okay, well, someone that's professional can, and I know I argued this, but the thing with the professionalism is, yes, they're professional in it, but there's still unknowns, and it deals with the future, and what we don't know is the future. So how are you going to be able to tell him to, yeah, you're medically cleared, but how are you going to be able to tell him that, yeah, you're good to go, but we don't know if, like, in the future it's going to be a problem. That's kind of what I'm worried about. There is probably, and look, I'm not a neurologist, so I don't know what they know, but I do know that we still don't know how CTE, how to diagnose it at when the person is living. So that's what scares me. Financially, Tua is kind of in a good position, because I think if he gets medically cleared from these neurologists, he's gonna play. That's kind of, I feel like that's just how Tua is, his competitive nature. I feel like it's almost guaranteed that he plays if he gets medically cleared, which I believe he probably will get medically cleared. And they have talked, like, he's not going on IR. They seem to be in a spot where he's gonna return, but obviously it's indefinite as of now. There's no really timetable for it. But he obviously had a huge contract that he signed this summer, in this offseason, which he signed a $167 million guaranteed contract. So with that being said, he's only received around 41 or 43. He will receive 43 within this fiscal year, but there is 124 still on the table. Now, if he was to retire after being not medically cleared, so he would have to not be medically cleared. If he was to retire, he would receive the rest of that 124 million. But, big but, if he is medically cleared, he cannot receive that 124, so he'd be stuck with the 41 million guaranteed. He does not receive, obviously the annual average. Does not receive that annual salary. He did sign a bonus, so he has that bonus. or he had a signing bonus, so he does receive that bonus, but he does not receive the annual average, which obviously was in the 50 million category. So he would only receive 40 million from that contract, right? And that would suck if he was medically cleared but he feels like he needs to retire. That's why I'm saying he might feel pressured, and not only is the media gonna pressure him to retire, the contract might pressure him to play, right? That's kind of what sucks about this. So the Dolphins are in a good position. Don't feel like, okay, well, they just signed this huge contract and now he's gonna retire. They're in a fine position, right? Because they do believe he will play. So don't put this on the Dolphins, right? This is how businesses operate. This is how it works. That's why contracts are made the way they are. So if something like this could happen, it would. And that was the thing. And I know Joel Klatt from Fox did talk about like even drafting a quarterback this year because the thought of this happening and it really does. Like, would you sign this quarterback that is very susceptible to injuries like this? Would you sign him to a long-term contract knowing that this could happen even within the first year of the contract? And that's obviously what happened, and obviously we don't know, it hasn't fully transpired, so we don't know the full story of it yet, but it does really suck knowing that, they paid him this full-term contract with the idea of like, oh, he was healthy last year, he can stay healthy, we got this, he knows he's not going to suffer as many concussions, he's not going to be as injury prone. Obviously he's going to suffer some injuries, but it's not going to be what we saw the last couple years. This is his, I believe, third or fourth concussion, and the last two were very the ones that were in prime time, even, they were very not sustainable, because one, he was able to play, or they let him play, and then he fell. And then another one, it was just so, like, the hit he took was just so physical and egregious. So I really don't, my opinion is, I don't know, because I can't really have an opinion on this. I'm not in his shoes, I'm not a doctor, and that's all what Nick Saban had to say when he was talking to Pat McAfee about this. And the thing is I don't know if we've really seen any mental health tolls that this has taken on him. And if anybody that was coming out after this had happened, they all spoke about his great character and how good of a human being he is. Even Josh Allen did it, like, right after the game. So clearly, like, he's in a great, he might be in a great mental state, but we don't know that. We're not near him. But that is what the problem is, obviously, with this is after his playing career, the mental toll that it could take on him when he's 40 versus obviously right now. It might not have an effect right now, but down the road it might. So again, I don't have a personal opinion on what I would do. Obviously, the immediate reaction is retire. That was the immediate reaction, because when I was watching the game, I saw when he was about to slide, I was immediately screaming like, no. Like, it was before he even went to dive, because the way I was watching him run, his stature, everything just showed like he wasn't getting ready to slide. He wasn't ready to make a football move. He just kind of lowered his helmet, and that was like, again, he's a competitive guy, obviously, so he lowered his shoulder, and obviously he was fighting for that. He wanted that. Now, he didn't have to do that, especially with how the game was going. It was not going in their favor. But again, when the game's not going in your favor, you get more desperate to do more desperate things. So obviously that's kind of where he was at. And I know this is like a little off topic, but of course it has to be Damar Hamlin that this happens to. Someone that already, has been through the ringer, died on the field, came back, made this incredible journey to come back on the field, was considerably on the bubble in training camp multiple times, and now he's made his way to the start again. So it's a very huge comeback story, and everyone felt for him. Everyone was, for him, and now he has to be on the other side of it and give the hit, which by the way was a basic hit, and it kind of seemed like he gave himself up, like it was a basic tackle, and it's not like he was trying to hurt Tua, right? And that was the thing with I can't remember who the Bengals player was that hurt Damar Hamlin, but it was like everyone was like, oh my gosh, like he was trying to like hurt him, like this is on him, like whatever. But it's not the same thing. And I don't understand why there's people even like giving Damar Hamlin this criticism in which he didn't deserve, because he was just making a basic tackle and he was giving himself up. And it's okay to understand that, he would he nothing bad happened to him, but mentally that definitely could mess with him, considering all the things that he's been through in the last year or two. Definitely that can take a mental toll on him, because that is not what he would have viewed himself having to get into a year ago, right? So it does suck for Damar Hamlin as well. And now he's kind of, some people see him as like this like, oh, like he caused this. Like, no, obviously it was not his fault, but he definitely feels bad, and I know other Bills players felt bad too as well, because it became more of a humanity thing versus football. So kind of like go outside of like, okay, this is more than just football. So I really feel like Tua needs to make this decision based on those around him and these medical doctors that are there for him, and at the end of the day, do what's best for his future, not for now. So yes, that could mean he still plays, but obviously you can't just sit here and be like, okay, well, he needs to focus on his legacy, and not worry about what comes after it. Like, yes, like this is his time to cement his name in the history books, right? But at the end of the day, do you focus on, your future health, your future mental health, physical, whatever, psychological? Do you focus on that, or your well-being even? Or do you focus on what you want to be known as now in all of history? And I don't really like that, because that really, that's almost saying like, oh, it's okay if you in your 40s you literally go through complete mental health crisis. You're gonna cement your name in the history books. It's okay. You're gonna cement, like, your legacy will live on longer than you will. Whatever. Like, that's terrible. That's awful. I hate that people are trying to argue that. He needs to just focus on what is best for his future at the end of the day. And that, to me, is, I can't make that decision. People in the media can't make that decision. It's got to be the doctors and the people around him, and especially his wife, and especially him. Definitely him. He needs to make his own decision, and I'll feel pressured by all these underlying factors like the contract or the media. We'll go into a different game here now. We'll go into the Fields-Wilson conversation, where I really feel like Fields was being held back in the situation that he was in Chicago, and we're kind of getting a glimpse of that, even with Luke Getsy being gone, and now Shane Waldron has taken over. You're kind of seeing a very similar run team, and they're kind of escaping away from the run game for whatever reason. They need to get back into that. I don't understand why they've escaped it. That really doesn't make any sense to me with a new rookie quarterback. I don't really understand it, because although Caleb is this, blue chip talent, generational talent at that, he needs something to lean on early in his career to keep him more comfortable, because he did look comfortable in preseason. Obviously, it was against 2s and 3s and all that, but he needs to be more comfortable now, and it just doesn't feel that way. And yes, that does start with his O-line, obviously, but he just needs to he needs some leverage and comfortability and easiness, because this O-line, yes, it's been rough, but at the end of the day, he needs, like, if the O-line's not going to be there, they need to make it, like, Shane Waldron needs to make things simpler for him, and that goes for mostly all the rookie quarterbacks, if not all the rookie quarterbacks this year's. They need to make things simpler for these guys. But going back to Fields and Wilson, I think Fields, he obviously the stats and the box score is not going to show you how he's performed. I think where you'll find actually how he has improved and gotten better is if you're watching the film and the All-22 and just honestly just any general eye test when you're watching the game. You're going to be able to actually see where he's improving. He's able to get out of the pocket more, and he's not escaping the pocket way too early, but when he does get out of the pocket, he's actually keeping his eyes downfield, which was what really actually was the difference between Caleb Williams and Justin Fields with Caleb coming out of college. Was that's what we were seeing in the preseason was Caleb actually kept his eyes downfield when he was escaping the pocket and was trying to make a play with his arm versus trying to make a play with his legs. And yes, Justin Fields is still running the ball immensely. He is keeping his eyes down the field and making the play. Especially, and what helps him with that is having a guy like George Pickens, and that's typically who we saw him go to on those plays where he was trying to extend it and he found someone deep downfield. He made some great throws. His deep ball accuracy has incredibly improved throughout considering last couple years to now. And it just really has been a couple penalties that have kept them actually from scoring touchdowns. I know they've only scored one touchdown so far this year, but he has had a couple penalties and a couple tackles, make a couple bad decisions in holding and false starts that have kind of kept, well, not false starts, but particularly the holdings that have kept him from actually making these big plays. And I feel like that kind of keeps us from actually seeing how good this team can be holistically. But when it comes to Justin Fields, I think he has been playing really great ball. Can it be better? Almost certainly. And do we really know if he can be better than what he's playing? Not necessarily, but he definitely has improved, and the situation around him definitely is better for him, even though obviously we've had Steelers offenses be mediocre at best for the last 5 or 6 years. So I know it's tough to say he's in a better situation, but I think Arthur Smith is making things a little bit more simpler for him. Now, is Arthur Smith this incredible OC that can scheme things up and get things like open? Not really, but he's going to make it simpler on Fields, and he's actually going to, bring out the strengths in Fields and be able and get the best out of him. So that's kind of what I like. And I think Darnell Washington, particularly for Fields, would be a great target for him if Arthur Smith can actually continue to utilize Washington well, because you know how he is with some of his athletic tight ends. That's obviously his only touchdown pass this year, but I think if they keep that up and using Darnell Washington more in the red zone, they can be a really great red zone team, which they have not been for the last couple years. Now jumping back to the Bears, with their whole thing with the Justin Fields thing. Like, even DJ Moore wanted Justin Fields to stay. And he even showed some of his contempt with Caleb Williams when they had their Sunday Night Football loss. It was kind of like a, dude, like, you're not, like, this guy isn't hitting me, like what the hell? We drafted him first overall pick, and it's just, nothing's working, and, like, I'm getting open, he's just not giving me the ball. He did say last year, he said for Justin, and this was in January, for Justin to be here, it'll be amazing. Nobody really wants to start all the way over and either have a losing season or maybe have a Joe Burrow. You could have that kind of season. You never know. It's a hit or miss. So he was not fully against having Caleb Williams in the building, but Justin Fields did show himself as a leader in that locker room, and he was loved by his locker room. So it did kind of sting for them to lose him and then it's stinging even more for Caleb Williams to not pop up like immediately. And I know we saw Keenan Allen like very much appreciative of having Caleb Williams, but that's also Keenan Allen coming from a different situation and being very novice to this Bears environment that has kind of plagued the franchise for years. And I can't really explain why this is or why their offense is always like this. I mean, their defense has been tremendous, so that's out of the question. But I couldn't really explain to you why. It just feels like no matter the names they have, it just nothing works out for them. Now, when it comes to Russell Wilson, I do believe other teams might start calling if Justin Fields keeps this up, but I don't think the Steelers will entertain it unless Fields actually gets better and better throughout the year and continues the ball out. There might be a team that is desperate that might offer something pretty compelling for the Steelers. So I wouldn't count out Russell Wilson being traded this year, but I also wouldn't count out Russell Wilson starting later this year as well. So anything could happen. Obviously, it's weird to say considering he was supposed to be the starter week 1, and that was their decision. And this injury's kind of kept him. This injury's kept him from getting on the field. But I do believe that there is a world where Russell Wilson could get traded. I mean, I know we just talked about the Tua thing, and understandably, he's probably I think he's going to come back, and I think the Dolphins also want to give Skylar Thompson another shot, right? And I know they said they wanted to bring a veteran in for some depth, obviously, because I can't even remember who their third quarterback is. They got rid of a couple of them in the preseason. So I think Russ would work amazing in that Dolphins offense. It really is tailored to him with this whole Tua situation. But Dolphins may just let Skylar Thompson ride it out, bearing Tua doesn't come back. And obviously, if Tua doesn't come back and Tua does retire, I don't think they'll go out and get someone like Russell. I think they will be draft time, and they'll make a decision in the draft. Now, I know the 2025 QB draft is not really the most enticing QB class, but I think they make that decision there. Or if someone hits the free agency market, Dak would have been great, but he obviously got paid, so that's not in the realm anymore. But jumping back to the Browns, I think Caleb obviously has shown some arrogance not in his play, but just things off the field. I was completely with Stroud when he was trying to give him advice. Now I understand they're the same age and they have about the same experience, but obviously Stroud did perform very well last year, and he knows what it takes. He obviously knows what it takes to succeed in this league. He has shown multiple times that he's a committed player, and he is a guy of character, high character, and he is very motivated. And I'm not gonna bring really religion into this, but he is a man of God. That just really truthfully shows his faith and discipline. and it's not really unwavering. He I would take advice from him personally if I was in Caleb Williams' shoes. Now I understand Caleb Williams. The thing, and this is really where the arrogance comes. He kind of felt like, I feel like he felt like that he would be able to come into the league and immediately just perform very well, which yeah, makes sense considering how well you're able to dominate college ball. But it's the NFL, and not everybody's gonna be able to just come to the league and immediately pop. There's rookies that do it, but I think most of the time those guys are anomalies. They're just built different. And it's like, well, if they're built different, then why did they get drafted higher? Well, I think their mindset completely changes once they get to the NFL. It is a completely different league. It is completely different. There's so many differences and variances within college football compared to the NFL. People that might have not really strived in college maybe succeed in the NFL because it matches their mindset and matches how they operate. Definitely something for CJ Stroud, 100%. And for Caleb to be very distraught after that loss, it made sense. But he seemed like he didn't even want to be there after that post game. After the post game. After the game, he didn't even seem like he wanted to be there. And now he did shake other people's hands before the Stroud thing, so that is very important to understand. But at the same time, he tried running away from Stroud when he still had things to say to him. It's just like, I don't know. And Stroud did come out. He said he wasn't trying to little brother him, which, see, that's the thing about Stroud is he immediately said hey, I wasn't trying to be, he was not even defending himself, but really just kind of just telling people what his full intent was. Because with his full intent, it's hard to say CJ Stroud was just trying to say hey, look at me, I'm just so great, here, you should take from me because I'm just this great player. That's obviously CJ Stroud presented that wasn't his intent when he came up to Caleb like that. And I think I can understand coming from both sides. I can understand obviously the other side where Caleb Williams can be a little pissed. You're the same age as me. You just had one great year. I was doing way better than you did in college. He can sit there and say that, but and obviously be mad about the game. And I know even with me, if we lose a game when I was playing sports, it would just be hard to just want to talk to anybody, because it's you put your heart and soul into that, and then for it to yield as a loss, it does suck. And I know not only was it a loss for Caleb, it really was a rough performance considering he had a lot of bad reads and he was running for his life the entire game, and there were some throws where he just it wasn't the O-line's fault. It was just poor decision made by him. But I think in Caleb's defense, he will just give him time. Just have patience with him. I think he will definitely grow. He'll make those decisions. I think his mental will completely change. I think right now he's a bit immature in the sense that he thought he knew what to expect from the league, and he was completely mind blown. He just it just shattered everything that he thought of the league. I think he's gonna make the right moves now after these couple weeks to actually grow and develop in the player that we all believe he can be. Again, Shane Waldron needs to make things simpler for him and just avoid making things difficult. And like I said, the O-line is not to be remissed. They clearly were not playing good at all. Nate Davis specifically needs to just be benched. That's just as simple as that. I truly believe. Yes, he has great technique, and he's shown that throughout the years in the Bears offense. But at the same time, he's missing key assignments. When it comes to run blocking, pass blocking, whatever, he's missing assignments in which it just looks like a chicken with his head cut off out there. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's not. Oh, you got beat. The other player made a better play. The other player's stronger. The other players. There's T.J. Watt, Max Crosby, Nick Bosa on the other side, Myles Garrett. No. It's what are you doing? Like, that's the question being asked whenever he's on the field multiple times. So that shouldn't be the case, and I think you need to switch it up when the player is kind of just out of at a loss. Like, just like what are you doing? But yeah, I think, and then we can go to the Bo Nix thing. I think his whole thing again. I think and I think Sean Payton will do this. He just needs to make it a little bit more simpler for Bo. Obviously, no rookie quarterbacks have a passing touchdown yet throughout the 2 weeks. So I think it's going to be a matter of Sean Payton kind of making things simpler for him. And yeah, they did have some dink and dunks when they were playing the Steelers. But again, a defense like that, Bo Nix is not going to succeed against as a rookie. And dink and dunks, like that stuff is not really going to work out. A way to really attack the Steelers is in the middle of the field. That's kind of where their whole like weakness really is, and it was kind of more just so like going to screen like bubble screens and stuff in the flats and a lot of like stuff in the shallow middle, but like I think they'll start to figure it out. I think Bo Nix will start to figure it out, but yes, it's been kind of rough for Bo Nix throughout the first 2 weeks, and people are already off of him after his performances. I think it's just a matter of time though till he actually starts to grow a little bit better or grow more. I'm not off on him. I know preseason has just continuously told us that it doesn't matter. It's just a waste of time because it doesn't tell you anything about the player. I just think you have to give these rookie quarterbacks some time to adjust to where they're at. I know C.J. Stroud wasn't playing. Like, C.J. Stroud, yes, he didn't have any interceptions within the first couple games, but that's because he was playing very conservative, and Bobby Slug was making it more simpler for him, which Bobby Slug being and that is the Texans offensive coordinator, but he was making it more simpler for him in the sense that he was, is more of an analytics guy, and he just understood like, okay, well, we don't want to put too much pressure on this guy, so they got the run game going very quick, and you did see that with Singletary and Pierce really kind of tearing things up early on, and then it opened it up for Stroud later during the season. And I mean, they didn't start out 3-0, right? They started out 2-3, I believe, and then they made their push, right? So I think there's definitely growing pains, and I understand why people were like very like, oh, well, Caleb Williams better get 4,000 yards, be the first Bears quarterback to get 4,000 yards. Oh, Bo Nix probably gonna win. He could easily win quarterback rookie of the year. I understand that, and I understand some of that still can happen. Maybe not the Caleb Williams 4,000 passing yards so much, but I think definitely I didn't understand why people were reluctant to be like, okay, they're going to have growing pains. Like, a lot of people were just kind of like, they're just going to come out things swinging. And preseason was kind of like the real like suspect to that. It really did. It kind of showed people like, oh my gosh, these rookie QBs are legit. This could be the best. Everyone was saying like the narrative was this could be the best QB draft of all time. And now it's like, I don't know. I don't know about that. But anyways, going on to the Vikings 49ers, which to me, this is more so anything. It's more so Brian Flores having not Kyle Shanahan figured out, but Brock Purdy figured out. He understands. I mean, this, not only does he have him figured out, it's more so really actually that Brian Flores is just a great blitzer. And his packages in which they blitz the most out of any other team, it really puts Brock Purdy in this spot where he kind of can't throw to CMC. Why? Because CMC's not even playing, right? He didn't have a CMC, so that hurt him even more. And then, a couple guys go out with injury. Like, Brian Flores really made things hard on Brock Purdy, and it really goes to show how, yes, Kyle Shanahan can be a mastermind. He can make, these players that, weren't highly recruited or highly known, or like, he can make these players just immediately work out in his offense. And it does get contradicted when, someone like Brian Flores comes around who can then, kind of highlight the weak points of the players that Shanahan implements. So yes, a player can work very well in a system, but if you shatter the weak points of that player, then they can't really operate well in that said system. So yes, like, there is still things open in the middle of the field. There's still the normal, usual Kyle Shanahan schemed open routes, everything. But the idea is that Brian Flores was able to institute a competent game plan that would work for this offense, and he did it last year against Brock Purdy and Shanahan, and they won. And that was even without Justin Jefferson, and now obviously with Jefferson and with Darnold playing in a comfortable position, which is all credit due to Kevin O'Connell at this point. I think Kevin O'Connell, under the Shanahan influence himself, has shown himself to be one of the best young coaches in the league, and he really is the revival of careers, and he revived Kirk Cousins' career, and he now is seeming to revive Sam Darnold's career. I think he's actually in a great situation now, and obviously with Sam Darnold, he did the situations which he played with, which were the 49ers, Panthers, and Jets, the two that which he really actually got quality starts in. It was a struggle bus because those organizations seemed to just be failed at the core. And definitely, most certainly, the Panthers bottomed the top. And with the 49ers, however, that was the one outlier. One, obviously, because the 49ers are under Kyle Shanahan and under it's a great environment, great weapons, everything. But Kyle Shanahan did have great words to say about Darnold, saying that he would start him if they didn't have Purdy. So that obviously meant he was a quality starter in a good situation. And obviously now he is one of the top quarterbacks. Like, honestly, well, obviously he's not a top quarterback, but he's had some of the top quarterback performances within the first 2 weeks. And they're 2-0, which everyone thought they were going to be last place in their division. So very similar to Justin Fields in the sense that goes to a better situation, but on a team that obviously is not projected to be anything this year. And, maybe Vikings, Steelers, they don't make the playoffs, even though they have 2-0 starts, whatever. They have these great situations. They're not projected to be great, but they're performing better than expected. And that's kind of how Baker was. That's how Geno Smith was. And that's just how it is in this league. I think that's where I think Bryce Young could probably come in later down the road. I just don't think there's a world where Bryce Young actually performs well in a Panthers uniform, unfortunately. And I don't think a lot of quarterbacks could in general. This notion that CJ Stroud would have just came to the Carolina Panthers and immediately been as good as he was is really preposterous. And I think even like the thing is, like, Baker too was there, and like now his career has been like, not like all of a sudden like we're like, oh, Baker's career's over, like Cleveland was right to get rid of him, whatever, and then he goes to the Buccaneers and it's like, oh, Yeah, the Browns were stupid. And we all know the whole story with that, with being with Browns just screwed him over. He didn't get the surgery done on his shoulder, the torn labrum, so that he could play the rest of the season, push the playoffs, and then he started playing worse, and then they just let go of him just like that. He should have just got the surgery done. He'd still be a Brown right now, I believe. But back to the whole Bryce Young thing. I think he needs a different situation, and I would love him in Miami right now, but obviously I don't think that happens, and obviously I don't think they would ever trade him. His trade value is kind of all over the place right now, so there's no real actual trade value for him right now, and I think there's no world where he gets traded this year, and I definitely think he's going to start more games this year. It's just, I think benching him was Dave Canales kind of just being like, well, I just got here, I don't want to lose my job, so I'm going to try something else out. And I think it's just that simple. And obviously Bryce Young has not been playing great, and there's been some rough patches that need to be fixed on his side, but there is a lot organizationally that need to be fixed, or nobody will succeed in that franchise. I think we'll have to see, obviously, what he can do in later starts, but it is crazy to think that they haven't had a lead in a game, like an actual natural lead in a game, because like they've had leads with like 3 seconds left in the game from game-winning field goals, but they haven't had an actual lead in a game since the last time I went to a game, and that was back in 2022, right, against Jared Goff's Detroit Lions that didn't make the playoffs, and that was a week before they went and played Tom Brady, they haven't had they haven't had a lead in one. They haven't had a lead, like a natural lead in one, since that Lions game, but the game after was their last lead that they've had and won. Or sorry, and not won. They did not win the game. That's the last lead they've had, right? So it's like something needs to be changed at a different level. You can sit here and say it's Bryce Young, but at the same time, there's a lot of other factors that's going into it, and it's just an abysmal, right? Let's go on to the Ravens. I think there is a lot of things that are like really unexplainable. Lamar did play good against the Raiders here, but they still end up losing. I think it does come down to a lot of the turnover, and I think the coaching staff has not looked as competent as they have been in present years. I think Harbaugh's had a couple mistakes that he would definitely like to go back to. I think specifically they've had the most losses with a 7+ point lead in the fourth quarter over the last 4 seasons. It's like 10 or something, and that like the next team is about 6, which is like half of that. So is that really a Harbaugh problem? Maybe, but I think definitely coaching staff holistically has not been that great this year specifically. I think the Ravens turnover, the worst turnover that they've had, has been on the O-line completely. The only, let's say, not serviceable, but the only like reliable lineman that they had that was a veteran and you could trust, you knew what you were going to get out of him, is Ronnie Stanley. That's not to say Tyler Linderbaum isn't the best or one of the best or going to be the best. It's Tyler Linderbaum. There's still a little uncertainty with him because he has the ability to be an All-Pro for the foreseeable future, but there's also that chance that he kind of flops. But he can be seen as the best player on this line. Now, Ronnie Stanley, the thing that I worried about being the only reliable guy is he's also very injury prone, and he's already dealing with injuries in week 2. The other guys, which Andrew Voorhees, who hasn't played like NFL snaps till this year, obviously a guy from USC, 7th round pick. Why was he a 7th round pick? Well, he had suffered an injury that kept him out of all last year. And they took a chance on him because he was going to be second, third round pick, and now they're playing him. And yes, he is a great, like, obviously second round, third round pick value. Like, if that injury doesn't affect him, he can be really good, especially at the guard. The problem is that is you're relying on a lot there. I didn't really think he was going to start this early, but that's kind of how it came out. I did expect him to have a good camp, but I didn't think he'd be starting this early. Same with like the tackles right now with Falele. Well, Falele guard. He's playing guard. He's played tackle before, but Malarkey playing tackle. Like Roger Rosengarten from Washington that they just drafted. Like, do you start him? Do you give him a shot? They might just keep trying to switch things up. I mean, this O-line it's had problems. They've had problems in years, but I think it's been the worst that it's been in a while. They do also lead the league in yards. So that could just be something where they're failing to execute. And again, that could be a coaching thing. I think, and you can say also that execution really lies down on the player's ability, but both games have been very close that they've played, and this is the NFL. There's more parity to it. So, the Chiefs are not going to win all 17 games this year. Obviously, the 49ers are not going to win 17. They already lost one. They lost to a team that, like, preseason, you would have said, no, there's no way they're going to lose. But, like, they're going to lose to a few teams, and mostly it's probably going to be teams you're not expecting them to lose games to. So, like, that's the thing with the Ravens, that this is why I kept them in my top 15 for power rankings. I kept them up there being 0-2. They might even be top 10. I can't remember. But it's the reason, because I don't think the last two games have been really indicative of who they are as a team, what their identity is, because one was against the best team in the league, the team that hasn't lost since December. Another is a team that is built on a culture that is very rah-rah, like run the ball in your face, play hard defense. Like, it's not like that's how Antonio Pierce works. They have a culture there that they're all bought into, and obviously Max Crosby was giving him problems. He won Defensive Player of the AFC. Like, that's like he was giving that Ravens, and he was going to. I mean, that was a poor Ravens offensive line, and that was poor Ravens offensive line play. But I think the Ravens really have to win here against the Dallas Cowboys, or it's gonna be rough heading down the stretch for them. I know this is a tough team for them to play, and the thing is, Cowboys do have that chip on their shoulder after last week's game, considering they thought they were in good spirits with their first game against the Cleveland Browns. I don't know. I really don't know what to think of this Ravens team, and it's kind of the same thing with the Bengals, and we will get to that later. Saints, are they real or not? I'm not a proponent of thinking they're completely contenders, but I do think they're a real team. Clint Kubiak, he's got to be the main point here to talk about. He's a mix of run and pound and air raid. So this is obviously he's coming from the Shanahan tree. His Gary Kubiak, Mike Shanahan, all that. It's just awesome to see the mix of modern NFL and like old NFL, and that's what I love to see with his like grabbing stuff from older ages, from like back in the 90s, and then implementing them here. But then also like it's like the greatest show on turf again, right? That's what we were watching these last 2 weeks, and I think he's utilizing his players properly. Rashid Shaheed, like, oh my gosh, like that's perfect for what he's trying to accomplish. And he's just been insane, and he's just going to continue to do very well. I mean, oh my gosh, he was doing well. He was doing well. He wasn't like a receiver you could trust. I think he's definitely developing, and I think obviously this offense is helping him out. But he's had 11 career touchdowns, in which they've averaged for 51 yards per touchdown. So that is a home run player that you are expecting to just every game just have a insane catch that goes for so many. He was burning Cowboys players last week. He was burning. I mean, not really hard to burn it's not really hard to burn Panthers players. I mean, like that defense has been rough, but Clint Kubiak has also made AK look like the prime AK-41 that we've known for the past couple years. It felt like that Christmas game again, where he had those. I can't even remember the amount of touchdowns. It was 5 or 6 or something like that. But it comes down to the zone run game that he's been able to institute. I think with AK or with Alvin Kamara. Yes, they did a couple outside things, but they were able to penetrate the weakness of the Cowboys defense. And with the Panthers, you can kind of run all over them anyways. But the fact that they were able to like really take advantage of a weaker defensive interior was awesome. And I think that's what Clint Kubiak's going to kind of like do throughout the year is kind of find your weak point and really expose it. And we'll see if he can do that against the Eagles, which obviously with the Eagles, their Vic Fangio has kind of stayed in his own little lane in terms of scheming and in terms of packages. That's what kind of scares me for the Eagles' sake this weekend. And we will see if he can continue this generational run that Clint Kubiak is doing. I mean, like, man, like he's already like, don't be surprised if he has head coach conversations halfway through the year or like down the stretch. They're motioning on 74% of their plays. I mean, that's top 3 in the league. I mean, that usually the top motion use of motion teams in the league tend to perform better on offense. Well, obviously it's an offensive stat, but that's no joke to be in that category of 74%. It's not a meaningless stat. Like, it just means you are keeping the defense on their toes more and more and more, and they don't know what to expect. And when you're doing that, it's more actually leaning on creativity of your plays, because if you have less motion, then it kind of really shows that you're not really utilizing your players in their full capacity. And with motion, you know, the ball's not always going to go to the motion man, right? The ball's not going to always go to every player that is that's moving. But at the same time, that kind of that keeps that unexpected. It keeps that, like, the ability of unexpected things to occur. And with this being said, it's just the whole creativity behind the offense really is shown when these teams are using more motion. And like the Chiefs, man, they've always been top motion, and that's credit to Andy Reid. And that just really shows that, like, the teams that have the better offenses are using more motion. And some of them were even like using loopholes around the NFL rules, and the NFL did crack down on that this offseason. But there was teams using insane amount of motion to completely use advantage of it, because it truly is useful. And what's funny is the teams that are at the bottom when it comes to motion are truthfully not really that great of teams. I mean, it really goes to show. I mean, motion is definitely, it's part of the new NFL, and if you're not doing it, what are you doing? That's just how I feel about it. Every year the top teams in motion just perform better in offense, and that's just kind of how simple it is. So you can't really take away from that. I think the Saints are sick of Pete Carmichael. I know he had been there for 15 years, but they needed a fresh look. And the offense did seem to go away once Sean Payton did leave. And obviously that is due in fact that they did lose Drew Brees as well, which is a Hall of Famer. They lost a Hall of Famer. They lost 2 Hall of Famers. So it's like, I mean, it was kind of bound to like be hard for Pete Carmichael to have same successes. But I think this with Kubiak, it's more fresh and newer. And man, Derek Carr looking like an MVP candidate. I truthfully think this is very similar to what he was able to accomplish in those 5,000-yard passing yard years in Oakland, whenever before they went to Vegas and before he was benched and all that. He had MVP candidate years, and I think this could be similar to that. But I don't know if there will be a contending team. I really can't tell you that. I know that I have a truth belief that they will make the playoffs. That is, now I know they'll definitely have a couple games where I think this is the real Saints team that we thought in the preseason, but I think they'll bounce right back right after that. Because I don't think Clint Kubiak's going to have every defensive team, figured out. But man, this first 2 weeks have been some of the most offensively productive weeks to start a season that we've ever seen since the merger. Like, it's tied for second for yards or something like that, which that's insane. And I feel like, every year, the Dolphins were very similar last year where their offense was having this huge streak. But obviously we saw the Dolphins, when it came to playoff time, their offense kind of faded away. So that's what I'm kind of worried about. That's why I'm worried about them being a contender, because there is weaknesses on that team that obviously that we knew in preseason that can be exposed that haven't really been exposed yet. So it's just only a matter of time. And I think the Saints defense has been playing way better than we expected. On paper, they're not as bad as people were making them out to be, but there was very much so weaknesses that can be exposed. So with that being said, the Cowboys for me, this isn't really indicative of who they are. And I know I've been saying that. I said it with the Ravens, I said it with the Bengals, but I really think that they are this is how they are. They don't know how to lose almost. When they win, they win by a lot. When they lose by a lot. Like, they almost don't. Did I say they don't know how to win? I meant if I said that they don't know how to win, I meant they don't know how to lose. So if they don't know how to lose in the sense that, like, once they start losing, they kind of just let it go. And that might be a coaching thing. That might simply be that. But they just weren't playing physical enough. I think that's just kind of what it came down to when they're playing the Saints. And with Alvin Kamara being as old as he is, I think it should be. He should not be able to just run through your defense like that. And they weren't even. Saints O-line played very well, so I think the Cowboys. Yes, their defense was not playing that great, and yes, their offense kind of just struggled mightily. And Dak Prescott had a couple questionable interceptions. But I think Cowboys will bounce back here. I think the Ravens-Cowboys game will be very, very great game. It will be a great game. It will feel like a playoff game, almost like the Bengals-Chiefs game. So with the Bengals-Chiefs, I think this playoff feeling that was in the air through this game really showed in the sense that the refs didn't kind of know how to. They didn't know how to actually call it. It was very rough on both sides in terms of reffing because they were calling almost near everything because they didn't want, a big play to be, not called. They didn't want to just be like, oh shoot, this player just completely just ruined this play just because they were able to just do something illegally and it was a little subjective, but they got away with it. No, they wanted to make sure if you were doing something bad in any sense that was wrong, you would get penalized for it. And I'm not sitting here trying to defend Bengals fans that were crying on Twitter about the final PI call, but there was missed calls for the Chiefs, and even Travis Kelce and all acknowledged it, and other Chiefs media members even acknowledged it too. But that's how I took it. I took it because I don't have fandom for either of these teams, so I was able to take it as it's just bad reffing on both sides. And like I said, in defense of the refs, like I said, there was kind of hard to call that game, knowing it was felt like there was a lot on the line for this game. Bengals definitely looked better than they did in week 1, especially with the Patriots game. But I think what definitely did not help them was Ja'Marr Chase yelling at the ref. And now we don't know everything fully to it because Ja'Marr Chase did accuse the ref of saying get the F out of my face, whatever. But it did mentally affect him for the entire rest of the game. So I think if you want to beat the Chiefs, now I'm not saying this is the formula to it, but I'm saying if you want a chance at it, you have to stay composure and be unshaken throughout the game. And that means mentally being focused, mentally being prepared, staying in that mindset that we are competent. We can match them on any front, which the Bengals were doing. The Bengals did, you could argue, were playing a better game, but things didn't come their way, and that fumble right after the interception was paramount in their non-successes. But I think the Bengals need to stay composed throughout the game if they want to win a game like that. And I think these two teams could definitely see each other in the playoffs, even though the Bengals have started out 0-2. We're going to go into, we talked about the Panthers already. We're going to go a little bit into Titans, Colts, and then we're going to preview the Thursday night football game. We're not the Thursday night football game because this game will be uploaded after or during the Thursday night football game. We're going to not preview it, but we're going to talk about a little bit about the Jets. And so with Brian Callahan with the Titans, obviously he's not happy with Levis right now. He's clearly being very blunt, and he's not sugarcoating his thoughts and feelings about the quarterback. Levis has shown some flashes. The problem with him is he is making some boneheaded mistakes, and it's only time before he is replaced. And what's not helping his case right now is that what could help his case is that Malik Willis is going to Green Bay, and it was working a little bit. And although that could be really indicative of Matt LaFleur's ability and his prominence within the offensive play calling, but I think Levis definitely would get another chance somewhere else. But I think the problem has been that he's just made terrible decisions that would get a lot of quarterbacks benched. And I think what's really giving him leverage to staying on the field is that he was, coming out of college, perceived as this high draft pick. So, obviously he did drop in the draft, but early second round pick, they're giving him more chances than some other quarterbacks probably would. And it's kind of similar with that with Trevor Lawrence, which Lawrence and Richardson, very similar in my eyes, that they have flashed. They have definitely most certainly flashed, but they because they what they do is, they miss some of the easier stuff, and then they hit on some huge plays deep down the field, because both of their depth of targets have been huge. They're top of the league, but again, they are both playing subpar. Anthony Richardson, he has the lowest NFL completion percentage throughout the 2 weeks, and his O-line is playing very well though. They scored very well in PFF. It is rough because Richardson has not really done much yet. And he was getting a lot of preseason hype because he only played 4 games, and he showed flashes, and they were great flashes. And but the problem is the preseason was kind of foreshadowing what has already happened within these first 2 weeks, and that's kind of what scares me, because that could mean that it foreshadows what happens in the next few weeks, and that is decision making with passing, and that to me can be very vital in what decides if he can be a great QB or not. Obviously, because he can't just be a running quarterback. He's got to be somewhat of a dual threat. I think the problem is too with their situations which they're in, they run the ball not as much as they should. I think these are guys that you need to take the stress off, Lawrence and Richardson, and you need to utilize their dual threat ability more. it just makes me think that these teams are just more scared of them getting injured, which is fair, especially because Richardson is coming off of that shoulder injury that kept him out all last year, and Lawrence is coming off an injury that really kind of led to their supernatural funk that happened last year, in which they have not actually won a game since the week after Thanksgiving, which is hard to think about. But yes, he was dealing with an injury in that late stretch. But yes, I think Richardson needs to Richardson and Lawrence specifically need to have some of the pressure taken off of them, because I think some of their decision making is not as good as we thought it may have been. To finish off, we're gonna talk a little about the Jets. Obviously, the Jets have been very shaky. I think Aaron Rodgers may be a shade of his former self, his former MVP seasons. And obviously, this will go up after the game probably, or during the game. So this, to me, the game will be where he needs to show flashes of an MVP season, or hope kind of seems like he'll be lost. The defense is not as good as we thought. They're not as elite. That's just how I feel about it. And they have suffered some injuries, so that is fair. Obviously, Jermaine Johnson is out for the season. But, man, the Patriots might just run the ball all over their defense, because it's just their running defense has just been very poor. With the Titans game, they really shouldn't have won that game. It just seems like it was a Will Levis losing the Titans more than the Jets winning that game. And that scares me, considering there's people saying, like, well, they lost to the 49ers, that are supposed to be, like, one of the best teams in the league. And, oh, they beat the Titans, like, that, so they're about in the middle, right? No, I don't think, like, we have anything to really show that they should be in the middle yet. They haven't proved anything. Yes, they had a couple touchdowns last week, right? But Titans, to me, seems like a team that they should have mollywopped. And, again, it's going to be the same thing with this Patriots tonight. Now, I know it's an interdivision game, but this should be a team that they just... Or there should be a game where they should just absolutely, like, plaster them. And if they struggle against the Patriots, it's going to be really tough for me or anybody to believe that they can make noise in the playoffs, or even make the playoffs at that. The Jets' line has been playing great, and obviously the caveat with that being said is the fact that it's an old line and they can get injured. So if they're healthy, they can continuously have clean pockets for Rodgers, because those pockets have been the cleanest damn fucking pockets we've seen. Excuse my language. Cleanest damn pockets we've seen for in New York and so long. So I believe the Jets have what it takes. They just have to put the pieces together, and they will get better throughout the year. And specifically Rodgers too. They do have to utilize more of Mike Williams. Braylon Hall, man, is that guy. So I think, not Braylon Hall, the guy, the rookie out of Wisconsin, Braylon. I think it's Braylon Smith. I can't remember. It's just his name is escaping my mind right now. But with that being said, the Jets you should not have lost hope for them right now. I know it looks rough, Jets fans, but it will come. Things will come throughout the year. I just don't think Nathaniel Hackett really is gonna last till Thanksgiving, though. And I think that if they do struggle, Robert Saleh could lose his job as well. So that is all for me. I appreciate if you're still here. Comment NFL if you are still here, still listening. I appreciate y'all. Even if you skip to the end and you hear me right now and you're listening, or you listened to a few bits and you just skipped, that's fine. I appreciate any type of listening that you do on this channel. specifically. Anything you do on NFL trades at all, it really means a lot to me, because this is truthfully my passion and what I want to do as a career. So if you guys can just continuously show your support and keep me engaged as much as I try to keep you guys engaged within the NFL community. Keep me engaged with what you guys want and what you guys feel. It's just, this is definitely something I want to do moving forward. And hopefully I can continuously do these every week and remain consistent with it, and that would be great. Thank you guys for listening, and I will catch you next time. Peace.